and welcome to a four-head edition of Ben's Junk. So, this probably should have been one of the first Ben's Junks I ever did, back when I started this little sub-series in 2014. It's been seen on archive a few times over the years, but it's never been properly discussed or demoed, so since I was already talking VCRs and format wars last week, I guess this is a good time to finally get around to this one. This is a Sony SLO-325 industrial Betamax deck. It was introduced in October of 1980, made until at least 1982, and retailed for $1,595 in 1980. $4,865 adjusted for inflation as of my making this. And this was my first Betamax, and is probably still my all-time greatest thrift store score. I found this at a Goodwill in Parker, Colorado, back in the spring or summer of 2011, and I paid the princely sum of $7 for it. Though I've spent plenty more than that on parts and accessories over the years. But anyway, let's take a better look at this guy. Yeah, I'm not too cool for dad humor. So there's a little misinformation on this one floating around the internet, so let's go ahead and clear that up. This unit only records in B1, or if you prefer, X1 mode, and it will play in B1, 2, or 3, or X1, 2, or 3 if you prefer it that way. But I've seen stuff online that says it only records in B2, or only plays back in B1. Well, none of that is true. As I said, it records in B1 only, but it will play any of the three main beta speeds. But anyway, down to business here. We've got a 1/4-inch headphone jack, but alas, no volume control. We've got a bank of 6 switches here. This first one allows you to either set the tape counter to 0 within some point during the tape, mid-tape. But then you rewind the tape, you press play, and the machine will automatically stop itself and start rewinding when you reach that 0 point. Or what you could do is you could set a 0 point, watch ahead, then when you stop and rewind the tape, it'll automatically stop at the 0 point. Then we've got the timer switch, which you can use in tandem with a Sony TT100 tuner timer unit, and maybe some others. But this will allow you to preset a future recording, within 18 hours anyway, on a TT100, or will allow you to automatically start playing a tape at a given time. I can't think of a great use for that, but it's there. Well, I admit, it's been so long since I've used the TT100 with either this or the U-matic that I figured I'd better hook it up again just for a little refresher. And once I did, I figured I'd better get out the camcorder just because there's so much wiring and it's a funky signal flow, so yeah, instant bonus segment here. But anyway, it's funky, the whole setup here, and that's in part due to the fact that the RF input on the SLO-325 here is very persnickety. So the signal flow is as follows, my slightly modified one. The SLO-325 is plugged into the back of my Sony TT100 tuner timer. And yeah, I'm sitting on my creaky old office chair right now. But it's plugged right into the back of the TT100, so the SLO is dependent on the TT100. And of course you can tell it was meant for use with that line of U-matics. But anyway, everything is set to channel 3 right now. And there's a hardwired cable adapter thing coming out the back of the TT100, which plugs into a special spot in the back of this 10-pin. And then we are running, there's an RF output in the back of the TT100, which I've got running to this VHS deck right now, which is pulling double duty as both our video source and an RF modulator. So out the TT100 into the coax input on the VCR, composite out of the VHS into the SLO, and composite out of the SLO to the TV for monitoring. And we got the switches set as follows. I've got it set so that when I rewind the tape, it'll stop for me automatically at 0, where it's at right now. Timer is set for record, output is set to VTR, input is set to line, limiter is off. And yeah, let me take a cut here, set the timer, and we'll see this bad boy in action. Okay, so I've got everything just about set. I've got the timer set for 5 o'clock, but I still need to turn on the timer. But when I do, it'll choke the power to the SLO, so this will be off. And let's just go ahead and do that here. Yep, just as expected. So now we just got us a brief little wait until our show. Okay, beauty. What's on? No. That stupid Oddity archive show. I hate this show. Okay, this thing isn't going to stop recording until I stop it, so I guess I better do that. So I've got it set to play. Let's turn off the timer here. Set it to play when it reaches 0 on rewind. So let's go ahead and do that. Get a quick fix of Oddity Archive. Now it doesn't play for me, so I'll have to do that. And let's see what we got here. Ah, there we go. Wonderful. And if I'm so inclined, I can reset the timer and we can just make it play. So let me do that. Okay, so we're going to choke the power again here. Everything's off. Now we just got to wait for our show to come on. Isn't that always the way? It's set for 6 o'clock now. Yep. There we are. Really long way to go about doing this, isn't it? Stupid interruptions. Anyway, back on track here. We've got the output switch to switch between RF and BNC, or RCA with an adapter. Or you've got the input switch, which does the same thing, just going in the other direction. Then we've got an audio monitor that allows you to switch between the left or right audio channels, albeit duplicated to dual mono when you do. Or you can just keep it in stereo. And speaking of stereo, we've got 2 1/8-inch microphone inputs, one for each channel, and these can be recorded separately, hence the audio dub button. And these are connected to the recording levels, which apply to both microphones, one for each channel, as well as any other inputted material. And it's all manual. You have to do it all by ear, and the VU meters definitely come in handy there. Then, jumping back to this last switch, we've got an audio limiter, which will mellow out the peaks in an audio signal. And I generally don't use it. The audio has to be either really inconsistent or, better yet, really hot for me to switch it on. And even then, it's only kind of mildly effective. Then we've got a 2-part tracking and speed knob, and the outer ring here adjusts the tracking. And if the little hatch mark is at the 12 o'clock position, that's the fixed position. But I've been known to occasionally get a tape that has some off-the-wall tracking going on, and I forget to reset it, and it's a mess. But anyway, during playback, you can press the inner part of the knob here, and it'll kick the machine into vari speed mode. And, of course, I can't leave this out. It's not really in the shot, but there is indeed a handle on the side of the machine. I've never had the guts to try and lift this thing at roughly 30 pounds using only the handle, but it's there. So, anyway, let's take a cut here and look at the back. I remember when I got this thing, I had never encountered any BNC equipment before, and this unit only had one connector initially. But I learned very quickly that BNC was just the professional version of composite RCA, and as such, adapters were pretty easy to find and were real nice and easy to hook up, so that wasn't a problem. But anyway, we've also got stereo audio here, linear stereo. Beta hi-fi was still about 2 years and change out. And contrary to what I said earlier, we've got an 8-pin interface to hook up the external tuner timer unit, which you've already seen. And then jumping over to the right here, we've got a hookup for a Sony RM300 or 400 or 500 series wired remote, hence the little AB switch next to it. And these remotes will allow you to search for a specific point on the 3-digit counter on the front, plus, do the basics like play and stop. And I've seen a few of these remotes come and go on Fleabay, but given that it would be just more of an ornamental thing for me, certainly as far as my own usage goes, I've just never wanted to spend a lot of money on it, and the ones I've seen have been more than I'm willing to pay, but maybe someday. Anyway, we've got a spare outlet, so you don't have to sacrifice a wall outlet. You've got an antenna grounding point. You've got RF in and outputs. And lastly, an RX data plug, which I'm assuming is for an external clocking device, like a time-base corrector. But I've got other means of taking care of that if need be, so it's just not a concern of mine. But otherwise, that is it. So I'm going to close on a few nice up-close and personal stills of the pertinent parts of this machine, because we are kind of at a distance here today. And I'll also give you a little taste of the playback and the trick play stuff. The only thing I'm not going to do here is the microphone stuff and the overdubbing, because it's unremarkable and I have to put in some kind of filler footage. I don't have a PCM unit. I'm not even sure this would play nice with one of the things, but it's just not really worth it, and it's not what it's for. So yeah, I can do better audio recordings with period gear even elsewhere. So just not happening. But otherwise, that is it for today, and any further comments I have will be in text form. I'll talk to you again soon.
It's been so depressing making this show lately. If you remember, last time we discussed the British Protect and Survive program,
which told you how to hopefully survive a nuclear blast.
On that happy note, today we're discussing probably the all-time most infamous slice of American Cold War ephemera, namely the 1951 nuclear survival flick Duck and Cover. Good times.
Sound has a look all its own, but it never looked like much on a home video cassette recorder because it never sounded like much. Until now, Sony introduces the biggest breakthrough in home video since we invented it, Sony Beta Hi-Fi.
I found it.
Well, settle down. Found what?
Oil. Barrels of it. Millions of barrels of it.
Well, that's what you've been looking for, isn't it?
Yes, but I didn't expect to find it oozing out of the ground.